I have Bowling Green as my runner-up. A lot of people would have chosen Toledo. I think that it was a hard-fought battle between the two, for sure. But I couldn't ignore the fact that Drew Pine is on this team. Chris McMillan is coming over from Northeast Mississippi Community College, which is crazy. But no,
I must say that's a mouthful.
No, Eddie George is coming over from being at Tennessee State, which I think everybody forgets that he is their head coach now. And I absolutely think that they're going to be a really, really good team to watch out for. Justin Pegues is very, very interesting because he came over from Tennessee Tech. So under Eddie George's system, you know that they're going to run the ball really, really hard. I think they have some talented receivers as well as far as what they want to do. They have RJ Garcia from Kansas State that's coming over. And if you know anything about Kansas State, they weren't throwing the ball all that much anymore. Avery Johnson is still there. Our boy, what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Jace Brown, my guy. Jace Brown is out there.
Are you talking about like people that are still there? Or?
No. Jace Brown is out there. And I just feel like with all the transfers that they got in, it's going to be very interesting. Their whole defensive front unit has changed. They get a couple guys that have come over from Miami, like Collins Echopong, which is crazy to say his name. JoJo Johnson is coming over also from Indiana, and we understand what Indiana did last year under 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀. They had a 11. There was an 11-1 team going into the playoffs, and then just so happened to lose to the two national champions in Notre Dame. National championship contenders, Notre Dame and Ohio State. You got it.
Yeah. I thought we were still talking about Bowling Green. I was like, hold on.
No. You know, the way that they ended their season last year, they were 6-2 in the conference. They're 75 overall. And now Eddie George is there as their coach. And he's been winning ever since he was at Texas State. Shout out to HBCUs. He's a coach.
Even at Tennessee State, 9-4 record, FCS playoff berth. I mean, kind of like exactly as you said, dude's been winning everywhere. Obviously, I feel like the big thing that's going to be missed, obviously, is a 𝗕𝙂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Jr. But, you return 4 starters on that offensive line. You got Drew Pine, season transfer, Missouri, Arizona State, Notre Dame. You're looking at it kind of running with, we'll assume Eddie George is still going to run the same type of offense, sort of like a spread. So you're adding Drew Pine into somewhat of a familiar scheme. But with Eddie George, veteran guy, wins everywhere. You're returning 4 out of 5 of your offensive linemen. That helps boost up, any offense. Defensive is reloading. You've got transfer talent. What's the dude's name? Darius Lorfils. Got a couple of other high caliber guys that were going into the transfer portal. I think, looking at it, it's going to be an interesting season starting off with Eddie George. Obviously, losing 𝗕𝙂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Jr. in the draft is, it sucks, especially because dude should have won the Mackey, just saying. But
yeah, and Drew Pine's last year as a grad transfer, right? I think you're bringing a veteran presence there. Dude played in Missouri, Arizona State, Notre Dame. He's played for the best, not the best of the best, but obviously FBS Division I, Power 5 level schools, right? And coming over to Bowling Green after they had, such a good quarterback play last year. Obviously, it was because of your boy, 𝗕𝙂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Jr., who led the league, who led all college football in receiving yards as a tight end. Yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous. I understand why people like Tyler Warren, but that was ridiculous. I would never forgive them for that.
That was nasty work.
The one guy that I'm interested in out of all these guys is Tunde Fudukasi. If y'all remember 𝗕𝙂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, 𝗕𝙂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Fudukasi. He used to play in the league a couple years ago. Linebacker for several teams like the Lions and I believe the Rams. He's already had a brother that's played in the league, and he's playing left tackle. So you kind of it's almost like you got a D1 guy or a Power 5. I keep saying D1 Power 5 guy there that obviously was blocking for them last year as well, or at Rutgers at a Power 5 school, because Rutgers is in the Big Ten. I always forget that Rutgers and Maryland transferred over to the Big Ten for whatever reason. They seem like group of 5 schools, to be completely honest with you. But I'm really interested in to see what Finn Hogan, not Finn Logan, but Finn Hogan does in this offense as well.
Names now.
Yeah, so I think the way that Eddie George came from HBCU, went to a group of 5 school, trying to prove himself there before he gets to a Power 5 or Power 4 school.
Gets to a bigger conference. And it's not like, Bowling Green has been down in the dumps and they're looking for Eddie George to be the savior. They're coming off of, well, first and foremost, they keep upsetting Toledo. How this keeps happening, I don't know. But
yeah,
you're looking at that. And I mean, back to back, we've got back-to-back upsets against Toledo, 3 straight bowl appearances. So it's not like, I've minimized the wrong thing. So it's not like, again, Bowling Green has been down in the dumps and they're like, Eddie George, please save us. They already went from a good coach. Now they're going to potentially even of a better coach and, can compete against guys like Ohio and Toledo for the MAC.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of new faces there. Obviously they want these guys to step up and have a good year. There's not a lot of course, since this is not Eddie George's recruiting class, right? We got to wait till next year.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of young guys on this roster right now, but with the influence that he can have there with the veteran guy like Drew Pine, I think that they're in to have a surprising year. I'm a big believer of the way that he rebuilds programs, and I think he's going to take the MAC by storm this year.
Yeah. And I honestly feel like this year is more of the, I guess, rental, for lack of a better terms, because like you said, next year is when his recruiting class is going to come in. So I feel like that's kind of when you're able, you've got the rental, the feel out, like there's already a presence on this team. There's already good pieces everywhere, or not everywhere, but like there's already good pieces on this team. This is already a good team. You're stacking a winning coach onto said team the first year, and then next year is when this guy's pieces are going to start coming in. So you're kind of looking at this year as a rental, and then next year being like, oh, this is the full extent of what he can do, even with younger guys, after losing veteran presence like a Drew Pine, after losing a Harold Fannin Jr., who, granted, he didn't have last year, but he won't have this year. So,
yeah, and I think your guy that came over from Florida is going to be a big part of that, and Arliss Boardingham. He played 2 years at Florida.
Didn't get much of a chance, honestly.
Yeah, but again, having him and Drew Pine on the same team, to be honest, I'm gonna throw out a little prediction here. I'm not saying that he might be Harold Fannin Jr. I'm saying that it might be a sneaky 900,000-yard season that we didn't see coming.
Maybe, because again, it was very much like everybody saw the hype and the potential, but he didn't really get that major of a shot, because outside of Kyle Pitts, Florida really hasn't utilized tight ends in a hot minute.
Mm-hmm. Will Nebraska ever be great again? Hold that thought. Hold that thought. It's funny that you came in here, Ardell, and said that. So get into your team.
Yeah, so the team that I have as my runner-up is going to be the Ohio Bobcats. I think we look at it kind of, you've got Parker Navarro returning, and I know a lot of people, both here at ACG and media in general, have like Ohio as either runner-ups or, winning the MAC. They won the MAC last year, especially after losing,
I think all of us picked Ohio last year, if I remember right. I have to go look.
It was either Ohio or Toledo.
I'll tell you in a second. I got the documentation somewhere.
Yeah. But Defensive coordinator John Hosser returns. So, you're looking at him. Promotion Brian Smith, offensive coordinator. So you're looking at stability in your coaches. And again, like I was talking about earlier, Parker Navarro, kind of to be able to step in, because we were all big fans of Curtis Rourke before he transferred over.
I was the only one that had Ohio winning last year.
And you know what? You were correct.
And was Toledo the runner-up?
Probably.
Okay. Because I had them as the runner-up too. But I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But they look at how Ohio's changed, because we talked about we've talked about this of they're the defending MAC champs, snapping a 56-year drought, 11-3 record, most wins in school history, 7-game winning streak, 6 straight bowl victories. So you're looking at an Ohio school that used to be, obviously at the bottom, because that's just where they were at. Now they're kind of on the rise in the MAC. You've got your key returning players again, as I mentioned, Parker Navarro. Your coaches still stayed the same. Your defensive strength's kind of where you're at. They ranked the top in the MAC, fewest points allowed, ranked well nationally. I think it was 47th, 48th overall. And the front line on the defense has kind of been where, as many people talk about, you kind of build from the trenches and go out. And that's been Ohio's strong suit on that defense under Hauser. And it's staying the exact same way this year. Projected 7.5 total wins, 5 and 7 in conference wins. I feel like that's a little bit unfair. I mean, I feel like it's still going to end up being between Toledo and Ohio, like we mentioned. But if they can beat Bowling Green, which is a sneaky good team, because I was really curious of why you picked Bowling Green over one of the teams that you didn't pick. But you also look at the new schedules for the MAC.
I just feel like one of these teams has to run out of juice eventually, and that's not the most analytic point, but again,
no, but I mean,
I believe in the caliber of coaching what Eddie George brought on, and he brought a bunch of guys that were not on D1 rosters last year that are going to have a lot to prove. If anything's going to be good, it's their defense. A lot of those pieces that were there during when they were given JJ McCarthy issues are going to be on that roster still. So we don't talk about that anymore.
I feel like Ohio schedule wise is pretty favorable. They're removing the divisional plays. You avoid some traditionally tough matchups that you would normally get if you were still in division plays. I feel like the biggest risk for Ohio right now, or what I would say is the biggest risk, is multiple new offensive linemen. You've got 4 starters. They've got limited experience. How early on are they going to be able to catch on, or is it going to take a couple of weeks and then they're going to have to play catch up by mid-season? Especially if a team like Bowling Green, as you've mentioned, gets off to a hot start. Toledo gets off to a hot start.
Yeah, I guess that's, if Toledo gets off to a hot start, I won't be surprised. If Ohio gets off to a hot start, I won't be surprised. Even somebody like that has a lot of turnover in Miami, I think they've been good enough to have a hot start as well, even though they tend to slow down in the middle of the season. But that's neither here nor there. So those are our picks. Don picks the Ohio Bobcats as the runner-up. Lee picks Toledo as the runner-up. Jason picked Toledo as the runner-up. And the ECG runner-up is Toledo.
Who would have saw that coming?